giving this little nigga too much power, sitting on a podcast talking about shit that don't make no sense. Don't make no sense.
Wait, who are you talking about?
Motherfucker ain't never played a game in the league ever, never played it. And then they out here talking about niggas need to move here. That's why the other agent came up there and approached that nigga and said, hey, listen. Hey, listen, you need to chill out with all this talking about moving my guy.
Rich Paul suggested the Lakers trade Austin Reaves for Jaren Jackson Jr. The backlash was massive. Austin Reaves' agent confronted him. The Lakers organization is reportedly frustrated. And now, Rashad McCants just called out Rich Paul on Gil's Arena, questioning whether agents should even have podcasts. The conversation got heated, and McCants didn't hold back about how problematic Rich Paul's comments really are. Should agents be allowed to have podcasts where they discuss trades? Or is this crossing a line? Let us know below.
We asked the chat, did Rich Paul cross the line with AR take? 69% of the chat said yes. Neither here nor there. Actually saw Rich at the Lakers-Bucks game Friday. Said
it was 69%.
Rashad McCants appeared on Gil's Arena to discuss the Austin Reaves situation, and he absolutely destroyed Rich Paul for suggesting the Lakers trade him. The conversation started with the panel debating whether the Lakers should keep Austin Reaves and pay him massive money, or trade him now before his value gets too expensive. But by the end, Brandon Jennings brought up Rich Paul's podcast comments, and that's when things got really interesting.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I'm not buying it.
Okay.
I'm not buying it at all. Giving this little nigga too much power, sitting on a podcast talking about shit that don't make no sense. Don't make no sense.
Wait, who are you talking about?
Motherfucker ain't never played a game in the league ever, never played it. And then they out here talking about niggas need to move here. That's why the other agent came up there and approached that nigga and said, hey, listen. Hey, listen, you need to chill out with all this talking about moving my guy. And my guy ain't did nothing but did the great things for the Lakers.
The core question was simple. Is it appropriate for an agent to have a podcast where he publicly discusses trades involving players he doesn't represent? Rashad McCants made his position crystal clear. He thinks Rich Paul is hurting agents by doing what he's doing, and his reasoning is solid.
Do you think Rich Paul is hurting agents by the fact that he has a podcast and that he's talking about?
No, I don't think he's hurting agents.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah, I'm still. I gotta listen to every topic.
Okay.
Like I don't mind. Like just like I don't mind you talking the game because that's
fine.
What are you talking about?
If you're talking about making moves, the team should be making moves. He literally said, "If I'm the Lakers, I'm doing this deal." That is cringe.
So what's the same? So what's the difference between what him and Shams is doing?
No.
Because it's raw rumor.
No. That's a very different.
It's just a rumor. At the end of the day, we don't know.
No.
It's a rumor.
It's very different.
It's a rumor.
Now
it's a rumor.
No, it's not. You are an agent. And you're creating it.
Here's the fundamental problem. When Shams Charania or Adrian Wojnarowski report trade rumors, they're journalists gathering information from sources and reporting it. They're not creating the rumors themselves. They're secondary sources relaying information they've received from front offices, agents, or league insiders. That's their job. That's what reporters do.
Shams has connections to people that's in the front office. You think he's just saying that? So does Rich. You think Shams is the biggest guy right now?
He's not representing nobody.
He don't have to. He don't have to. I still got the information.
The difference is
he's not representing nobody.
Information is information.
One is getting information. One is secondary information. I'm getting it from somebody and I'm relaying it. One can create the information. That's very different.
Okay.
Rich Paul is different. Rich Paul isn't a reporter. He's an active NBA agent representing multiple all-star players. He has the power to influence trades, not just report on them. He has relationships with front offices across the league. He represents LeBron James, the most influential player in basketball. So when Rich Paul says, "If I were the Lakers, I'd trade Austin Reaves for Jaren Jackson Jr.," he's not just offering commentary. He's potentially creating pressure, influencing conversations, and shaping narratives in ways that directly benefit his clients. That's the distinction Rashad McCants was making when Brandon Jennings tried to equate Rich Paul with Shams. Jennings asked what the difference is between what Rich Paul is doing and what Shams does, claiming they're both just spreading rumors. But McCants shut that down immediately. "You are an agent. You're creating," he said. "The difference is that Shams gets information from sources. Rich Paul can create the information because he has the power and influence to make things happen.
What if Rich Paul was Austin Reaves' agent? Would he have said this?
Well, he said LeBron can't win a championship. That's worse.
Think about it from Austin Reaves' perspective. You're playing great basketball. You're averaging close to 27 points per game when healthy. You're about to get a massive contract extension worth potentially $250 million. And then LeBron James' agent, one of the most powerful figures in the NBA, goes on his podcast and suggests your team should trade you. That's not just commentary. That's a powerful industry figure potentially influencing your future.
Probably not enough who commented on what you said actually watched the clip, even the full clip.
Right. Including my man Reg, who happens to be Austin's agent. We talked, this is my guy. I mean, I've known him for 20 years. And he said, Rich, I didn't watch the shows. Okay. So we talked about it. And I'm like, look, Reg, you my man. And I want Austin to know.
Now imagine you're Austin Reaves' agent, Reggie Berry. You've worked to build your client's value. You've positioned him for a generational payday. And then Rich Paul publicly undermines that by suggesting he should be traded. You'd be furious, which is exactly why Reggie Berry flew across the country to confront Rich Paul at a Lakers game. He had every right to be upset because Rich Paul crossed a line that agents aren't supposed to cross.
Probably not enough who commented on what you said actually watched the clip, even the full clip.
Right. Including my man Reg, who happens to be Austin's agent. We talked, this is my guy. I mean, I've known him for 20 years. And he said, Rich, I didn't watch the shows. Okay. So we talked about it. And I'm like, look, Reg, you my man. And I want Austin to know this is not about Austin Reaves because, one, love the player, love the person, and two, I actually need him to help me with my golf game. So I'm not trying to mess up anything with AR.
I don't remember who, I think it was I who brought up.
You brought it up.
Reaves, because you were saying this is how they could get him, and you were talking about draft picks and matching salaries and expiring.
The ethics here are clear. Agents don't publicly discuss other agents' clients as trade candidates. It's an unwritten rule in the industry because doing so can damage relationships, hurt a player's market value, and create unnecessary drama. Rich Paul violated that rule, and he did it on a public platform with millions of listeners. McCants also pointed out something crucial that often gets overlooked in these discussions. When Rich Paul makes these comments, it reflects poorly on LeBron James. Whether LeBron actually agrees with the comments or not becomes irrelevant because everyone assumes Rich Paul is speaking on LeBron's behalf. That assumption exists because of their relationship, their history, and the fact that Rich Paul's entire career is built on representing LeBron.
So LeBron James' agent, Rich Paul, made headlines earlier this week when he suggested on his podcast that the Lakers trade Austin Reaves for Grizzlies All-Star Jaren Jackson Jr. But after last night's Lakers win, LeBron tried to distance himself from his agent's comments. James told ESPN in his way out of Crypto.com Arena this, quote, I think y'all know by now, Rich is his own man, and what Rich says is not a direct reflection of me and how I feel. And I hope people know that. I hope people know that, and if they're not sensible to know that, then I don't know what to tell them.
LeBron tried to distance himself from Rich Paul's comments by saying Rich is his own man, and that what Rich says doesn't reflect how LeBron feels. But nobody's buying that. The relationship is too close. The pattern is too established. Rich Paul doesn't make major public statements about the Lakers without at minimum running them by LeBron first. And if LeBron disagreed strongly with the Austin Reaves trade suggestion, he would have told Rich Paul not to say it publicly.
The flip side to it, however, is that there's also a history with LeBron James directly or indirectly influencing team moves and using media, podcasts, and other forms of media to do it. That's a fact. And when that's the reality, you got to know if you're Rich Paul and when you open your mouth, the assumption is, oh, this is something that LeBron James is feeling. Rich Paul is speaking for it.
The fact that LeBron felt the need to issue a public statement distancing himself from Rich Paul's comments proves the point. If Rich Paul truly operated independently, LeBron wouldn't need to clarify anything. The assumption that they're aligned wouldn't exist. But it does exist because their relationship has always worked that way. Rich Paul speaks for LeBron. That's been the dynamic for 2 decades. Brandon Jennings tried to defend Rich Paul by suggesting that agents should be allowed to talk about the game and give their perspectives. And in theory, that's fine. Nobody's saying agents can't discuss basketball or share their opinions. But there's a massive difference between general basketball commentary and specific trade suggestions involving players you don't represent who play on your client's team. If Rich Paul wants to talk about basketball strategy, defensive schemes, offensive systems, or league trends, nobody would care. That's fair game. But when he says, the Lakers should trade Austin Reaves for Jaren Jackson Jr., that's no longer general commentary. That's a specific roster suggestion that directly benefits his client, LeBron James, at the expense of another agent's client. That crosses the line from commentary into manipulation. Gilbert Arenas seems somewhat sympathetic to Rich Paul's position, though he acknowledged they'd discuss it more in depth the next day. But Rashad McCants was unequivocal. He thinks what Rich Paul is doing is wrong. He thinks it's hurting agents, and he thinks the line between being an agent and being a media personality needs to be clearer. The comparison McCants made between Rich Paul and Shams is instructive because it highlights the core issue. Shams reports on information he receives. He's a messenger. Rich Paul creates information because of his position and influence. He's a participant in the system he's commenting on. Those are fundamentally different roles that require different ethical standards. Think about it in another context. If a sitting Supreme Court justice started a podcast where they discussed cases currently before the court and suggested how they should be decided, people would rightfully question whether that's appropriate. Even if the justice claimed they were just offering personal opinions, separate from their official role, the conflict of interest would be obvious. Rich Paul is in a similar position. He can't separate his role as LeBron's agent from his role as a podcast host discussing Lakers roster decisions. The timing of Rich Paul's comments also matters. Austin Reaves is in a contract year. He's about to negotiate a massive extension. His value is at an all-time high, and Rich Paul publicly suggests trading him at the exact moment when maintaining his value is most important for Reaves and his agent. That's not coincidental, that's strategic. Whether intentional or not, Rich Paul's comments could potentially impact Austin Reaves' market value or his relationship with the Lakers organization. The Lakers front office is reportedly frustrated with Rich Paul's podcast for exactly this reason. They don't appreciate one of their star players being publicly shopped by an agent who doesn't represent him, especially when that agent represents their other star player. It creates unnecessary drama, complicates contract negotiations, and makes roster management more difficult. Rashad McCants understands all of this because he played in the NBA. He knows how these power dynamics work. He knows how agents operate. He knows the difference between appropriate commentary and manipulation. And he's calling it out because it matters. If agents start using podcasts to publicly influence trades involving players they don't represent, it creates chaos in the league and undermines the trust that's supposed to exist between agents. The broader question is whether agents should have podcasts at all. Many people in the NBA believe they shouldn't, at least not while they're active agents making deals and representing clients. The conflicts of interest are too obvious, the potential for manipulation is too high, and the line between commentary and influence is too blurry. Rich Paul has made it clear he views his podcast as a business opportunity. He's getting into content and media as a revenue stream. That's fine for most people, but when you're one of the most powerful agents in basketball, representing the most influential player in the league, you can't just be any podcaster. Your words carry weight. Your suggestions influence decisions. And your relationship with LeBron James means everything you say about the Lakers will be interpreted through that lens. The comparison to LeBron's podcast is also relevant. When LeBron started Mind the Game, many people questioned whether it was appropriate for an active player to have a platform where he discusses basketball strategy and team dynamics. Those concerns were validated when the podcast seemingly influenced the Lakers' decision to fire Darvin Ham and hire J.J. Redick. People stopped talking about it because Redick has been an excellent coach, but the ethical questions remain. If players and agents keep starting podcasts where they discuss roster moves and team strategy, where does it end? Do GMs start podcasts where they publicly discuss which players they want to trade? Do owners start podcasts where they critique their own teams? At some point, the conflicts of interest become so obvious that the integrity of the league suffers. Rashad McCants is right to call this out. Rich Paul crossed a line. He suggested trading a player he doesn't represent in a way that directly benefits his client. He did it on a public platform with massive reach. And now he's facing consequences in the form of backlash from Austin Reaves' agent, frustration from the Lakers organization, and criticism from people like Rashad McCants, who understand the ethical issues at play. The fact that Rich Paul is now trying to walk back his comments and claim it was all just content proves he knows he messed up. If he genuinely believed what he said was appropriate, he'd stand by it without qualification. Instead, he's trying to minimize the damage by claiming he's known Austin Reaves' agent for 20 years and just wants Austin to help with his golf game. That's damage control, not conviction. Brandon Jennings' defense of Rich Paul falls flat because it ignores the power dynamics and conflicts of interest that make this situation different from regular media commentary. Yes, information is information, but the source of that information matters. The motivations behind that information matter, and the power to act on that information matters. Rich Paul isn't just some podcaster sharing opinions. He's an active agent with the ability to influence the very outcomes he's discussing. Rashad McCants just exposed everything wrong with Rich Paul's podcast. Agents shouldn't be publicly suggesting trades for players they don't represent, especially when those trades benefit their own clients. If you agree with McCants that Rich Paul crossed a line, hit that like button. If you think agents should be free to say whatever they want, smash subscribe and explain why in the comments.